Hi folks, I'm Dr. Hanmant, PhD in Linguistics and Phonetics, and talking about this video, I believe it's going to be a simplistic and brief but comprehensive introduction to phonetics from both interdisciplinary and layperson's perspectives. So let's get started now. To begin with, I'd like to quote Aristotle, the 4th century Greek philosopher, who says, "Man is a social animal." But let me rephrase this quote to avoid any gender bias and say that every human being is a social animal. So, no doubt that human beings stay in societies or communities. But the question is, how do we construct communities and socialize ourselves? And the answer is very simple, that it all happens through language or communication as we express our thoughts, ideas, views, and feelings and understand the same expressed by other fellow members of our community or society. However, sociolinguistics and sociolinguists, the professionals who study sociolinguistics, which is the field of study that investigates the relation between language and society, go beyond this simple definition of language and claim that the language or the variety of a language we speak and the way we speak it becomes our identity and gives information about us like the region we come from, our cultural and socio-economic background, our gender, age, education, and profession. Moving on, speech is primary to human life as most of our communication on a daily basis takes place through spoken mode of communication. And I say primary because we use spoken form of communication to a great extent to communicate, and that there are other tools of communication like written mode, body language, and sign language. Then our communication or speech has three stages. The first one is production, where we speak words and utterances. Second is transmission, that means the transmission or travel of our message. And the final one is reception, where the audience tries to understand the message that we are trying to get across. All these three stages deal with the process of communication and the idea of mutual intelligibility, where our audience understands us without any linguistic barriers. And as we are discussing speech, sounds are indispensable part of it. And then they are studied in phonetics by phoneticians. So what's phonetics now? Phonetics is usually defined as a scientific or systematic study of human speech sounds. It has three sub-branches. The first one is articulatory phonetics, which studies articulation of speech sounds. Second one, acoustic phonetics, describes speech with reference to its physical properties like intensity, frequency, and duration. And the last branch, that is auditory phonetics, deals with how the sounds or speech is heard, perceived, or interpreted by listener. Now, phonetics is one of the branches of linguistics. Then what's linguistics? Linguistics is a scientific study of language. Before moving on, we defined phonetics as a branch of linguistics that systematically studies human speech sounds. Then what about animals? Don't they communicate with one another? Yes, they do. So they have their own system of communication, which is not as complex and flourished as most of the human languages are. For example, most of the animals and birds communicate through speech signals like monkeys, dogs, sparrows, and parrots. For instance, imagine a pair of monkeys, one mother and one father, sitting in a tree while their baby monkey is playing underneath the tree. And both of them see a tiger approaching their young one, and they would make certain kind of speech signals through which the baby monkey would understand that there is some danger approaching it and that it should move to a safer place. Some animals and birds communicate through the body movements like dance. For instance, peacock, that means the male, performs dance in order to attract peahen. Similarly, some others communicate through chemicals, fluids, smell, and touch in order to find mates, to dominate, and to express love, happiness, anger, and fear. Can we now talk about how phonetics is exactly the systematic study of human speech sounds? Yes, as phonetics or phonetician utilizes various instruments to study how our articulators and airstream mechanisms behave during the production of speech sounds, we call it a scientific study. Also, they study a huge database of the occurrences of speech sounds in varying combinations and environments and develop a data-driven, rule-governed, and objective theory of speech sounds. Therefore, we call it a scientific study. The image of the part annotation of an utterance indicates the waveform and pitch variation of each word in it. Prat is a software commonly exploited to analyze speech sounds or units. Then what do we exactly study in phonetics? Phonetics tells us about how sounds are produced in a language and the articulators or speech organs involved in it. Syllable structure. Syllable means each single speech unit that we produce, which necessarily is a combination of a vowel and a consonant sound. Word stress and their appropriate pronunciation with respect to something called RP, received pronunciation, known as the standard model of English speech. The various pronunciation of plural, yes or es and past tense ed markers in the English words, and intonation, which deals with rising or falling tone in a sentence or utterance depending on its type or utterer's intention, attitude, and mood. Does our speech or communication have any connection to the brain? Yes, of course. Our brain's area called Broca's area, named after the physician Paul Broca who discovered it, sends signals to our speech organs when we wish to say something. Next, there is another area called Wernicke's area, named after the physician Carl Wernicke who discovered it, which is involved in the comprehension of the speech in a context. Here are the articulators or speech organs, beginning with glottis, then vocal folds, larynx, epiglottis, uvular, velum, that means soft palate, hard palate, alveolar ridge, nostril, lips, then nasal cavity and oral cavity, teeth, and the parts of the tongue like tip, front, and back, and also the root. And here are the pulmonary or airstream mechanisms. As we already know, our speech organs utilize the air that we are either inhaling or exhaling in order to produce speech or speech sounds. And depending on the origin of air in our body, we have three types of airstream mechanisms. The first one is pulmonic, where the lungs are the origin of air in our body. Then glottalic, where glottis is involved in the production of air. And finally velaric, that means velum is in picture. And in the image you can see lungs as the primary source of let's say air circulation in our body. Then we have bronchi, which connects the right lung to the left lung, and we have trachea, which simply is the windpipe. Then we have larynx, pharynx, and nasal cavity, which are also involved in the production of air, either inhalation or exhalation. Why learn phonetics? For better communication and to enhance the mutual intelligibility of our speech, especially when we speak to the speakers of other languages. Now, phonology is a twin branch of phonetics, which is a systematic study of sound combinations or sound patterns. Sounds of English. Though there are 26 letters in the English alphabet, there are actually 44 sounds in English, divided into 20 vowels, which we pronounce without much movement of speech organs and obstruction of the air passing out of our mouth during their production, and which are subdivided into 12 monophthongs, means pure or single vowel sounds, and 8 diphthongs, means combinations of two vowels per syllable. And finally, there are 24 consonants, which require some complex operation of movements of the speech organs and may partially or fully block the free flow of air. If you wish to get complete information about the IPS symbols of vowels, diphthongs and consonants, at the same time how to draw them and pronounce them, please watch our videos about them with the help of the link given in the description box of this video. Finally, IPA. Can you read these two words, POT and BOT? Simple, right? But can you tell me why is the common letter U pronounced differently in these two words? Okay, so possible answers include that they used to be pronounced just the same in some old variety of English, and that there is no one-to-one correspondence between the English spellings or letters and pronunciations or sounds, as English has borrowed a great deal of its vocabulary from a number of languages of the world, and though their pronunciation was localized or anglicized, their spelling didn't evolve along. And precisely to avoid this confusion between sounds and letters, we have IPA, that is International Phonetic Alphabet, a collection of symbols developed by the linguists and language enthusiasts under the leadership of the French linguist Paul Passy in the year 1886. The IPS symbols are sometimes just taken from the English alphabet or modified to represent each unique sound, that is 44 sounds of English. Link to access complete IPA chart also available in the description box. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.